The terminal at Ramstein Air Base smelled like jet fuel and burnt coffee, and Staff Sergeant Dana Cole had not slept in 2 days. She stood at Gate 14 with a single boarding pass clenched so tightly the paper had gone soft at the edges. In 6 hours her son Ethan would be wheeled into an operating room in Ohio, and if she was not standing in that hospital hallway when he woke up, she was not sure she would ever forgive herself. She had fought for this seat for 3 weeks. She had begged a scheduling officer, called in favors from people who owed her nothing, and finally there it was in her hand. One seat, the last one on the flight. She turned toward the boarding line and saw him. A young airman barely 20 sitting alone against the wall with his duffel bag between his boots and his phone pressed so hard against his ear that his knuckles had gone white. Dana did not mean to listen, but the terminal was quiet and his voice cracked loud enough to carry. His mother had collapsed at home. The doctors did not think she would make it through the night. He had no ticket. He had no orders. He had nothing but a red eye and a prayer that someone at the counter might show him mercy. Dana watched him hang up the phone and press his forehead into his hands, and something inside her chest twisted in a way she recognized. She knew that exact fear. She had felt it every hour for 3 weeks. She looked down at the boarding pass in her hand, at Ethan's surgery time circled twice in blue ink on the corner where she had scribbled it as a reminder, and she made a decision before she let herself think it through. She walked over, knelt in front of the young airman, and pressed the boarding pass into his hands. He looked up, confused, and told her he could not take it. He said he did not even know her name. Dana smiled, though her eyes were burning. She told him a name did not matter right now, that his mother mattered, and that some things could not wait for the next flight. Then in front of the entire gate, she tore the boarding pass in half so that no gate agent could hand it back to her out of guilt, so that there was no version of this moment where she changed her mind. The airman stared at the torn paper in his hands and then at her, and for a long moment neither of them said anything at all. A voice cut through the terminal, low and steady, the kind of voice that made an entire room straighten its spine. Colonel Marcus Bell, the base wing commander, had been standing near the boarding counter the entire time, waiting to fly out for a routine change of command ceremony stateside. He had watched the whole exchange without either of them noticing him. He stepped forward and asked Dana her name and her unit. She answered him plainly, certain she had just talked her way into a reprimand for causing a scene at the gate. Instead, the colonel turned to the gate agent and asked a single question. Was there any seat left on this aircraft in any section under any designation? The agent hesitated and said there was one jump seat reserved for official use, and it belonged to the colonel himself. Colonel Bell nodded once, unbuckled the badge from his uniform pocket, and handed his own boarding documentation to the gate agent. He told her to put Staff Sergeant Cole in his seat. Dana tried to refuse. She told him she could not ask an officer to give up his own flight for her. The colonel's face changed then, and for the first time that day something in his composure cracked. He told her she had not asked him for anything. He said that 11 years ago he had missed a flight home by 4 hours because he could not get a seat, and by the time he landed his own father was already gone. He said he had spent over a decade wondering what those 4 hours might have meant, whether a single word or a single hand held at the right moment could have changed how his father's last breath felt. He told Dana that he was not going to stand in a terminal and watch history repeat itself in front of him when he had the power to stop it. The gate agent reissued both tickets in stunned silence. The young airman was given a seat in coach beside a retiring master sergeant who offered to trade seats without being asked. Dana was walked to gate 14 with a new boarding pass in her hand, this one still whole. 6 hours later, Dana Cole walked into a hospital in Ohio just as they were wheeling her son back from recovery. Ethan opened his eyes, saw his mother's face above him, and smiled the way only a child can smile when the one person he needed most in the world showed up exactly when it mattered. 2,000 miles away, Colonel Marcus Bell sat in an airport lounge with a cup of coffee going cold in his hand, and for the first time in 11 years he felt like those 4 missing hours had finally been repaid to someone else in full. What passed through that terminal that morning was not paperwork and it was not protocol. It was proof that rank means nothing beside a mother's love, that sacrifice offered freely always finds its way back around, and that sometimes the greatest act of leadership is simply stepping aside so someone else can get where they are desperately needed. If this story moved you, like this video, leave a comment telling us who you would give your seat to, and subscribe to Soul Relief Stories for more tales of quiet heroism and unexpected grace.